From 17 once again. This is part 2 to my Battlefield 4 hard difficulty walkthrough. And that's part 2 of Mission 5, the Kunlun Mountains. Not the second part of the guide. Just jumped the gun there because I'm kind of eager to talk about what I've been speaking of in the previous video, which is just inconsistencies and oddities and just strangeness that happens in game design and the patterns of game design that we see. Like genres emerging from other genres and melding together to bring something that is unique and new and unheard of and unthought of, only for that then to be spun like yarn so frequently from then on in almost every game that it's amazing we never had it before, and we can never imagine a time where we were as innocent as to have never known what it was. Like the regenerating life that permeates everything. Good example of this is the tower defense kind of obsession that we've got now, where everything has this tower defense notion, or progression systems, where everything that can feasibly have a leveling system and an unlock system now has exactly that. You know, these things that were unique to RPGs are now everywhere. And that is not, I'm not saying any of this is bad at all, guys. I think it's great that we have these hybrids, but it's strange how it does this, how we have these phases. And as I mentioned at the end of the previous video, boss rush mode. Boss rush mode was an easy way of getting an extended piece of gameplay or feature to an already established game. All you had to do was isolate the boss fights, put them in a big line, stick them in a separate mode. And I loved it. I've always loved boss rush because I like bosses. Bosses are my favourite part of games. I was listening to a friend of mine's commentary on his Bayonetta guide, a guy called Big Benedict, and he goes on to say that he was kind of surprised at how many bosses there are in Bayonetta, and how, you know, you beat a boss and then there's another boss, and you beat a boss and then there's another boss, and to him it was a bit of a negative. He wasn't used to it, and it wasn't something that he particularly thought was all that great. And to me, at that moment, my brain's just saying, what the hell is wrong with this person? And there's nothing wrong with Bick at all, it's just a different way of thinking. But to me, a celebration of my favourite part of games is, you know, how can anybody not feel as, you know, like childish wonder and amazement as I do when I come up against a really cool boss or a sequence of really fun fights. And there are bad bosses, guys, you know, there are bosses that definitely should be feared and loathed. But boss rush mode was something that it served a lot of purposes for me personally. It allowed me to play back through the boss fights without playing the game, which is something that we definitely could do with nowadays. And it allowed you to practice the bosses. Like any game that has a boss rush mode, you can get really good at them bosses. I'm talking real good, because you don't have to worry about the progression it takes to get there, so you can just fight that boss. And a good one was Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 had a boss rush mode. It had like a boss mode, I can't remember the name of it, but there was a version where it made the bosses really hard. There was the normal version, there was like the extreme version, I can't remember the name. But they were so challenging and so different that it made them amazingly fun. And you didn't have to worry about cutscenes or talking or bullshit or, you know, any of that. You could just get directly in the boss, right in there with the fight. And I'll never forget the one for the end, who was an old sniper in Metal Gear Solid 3, if you've never played it. It's a very old, patient sniper with a parrot. And you fight him in this sequence of wooded areas. It's like a jungle, literally. And it's a sniper fight between two snipers, and you're hunting each other. And it's one of the most tense and enjoyable sniping fights ever. And Metal Gear's had some great sniper fights. They just so happen to save the worst one for 4, which makes no fucking sense. They didn't even have you doing it in a new area. Bloody, oh, I hate that fight. But it's such an iconic, imaginative, and it's simple. I say imaginative, it really is. It's that essence of what you love about your favourite action film, the essence of what you love about your favourite showdown in anything. And that's what it is. It's just this showdown between two masters, and it's really fun to play too, which helps. And on this boss rush expert mode, it took everything off you, so the only thing you had was your rifle. You didn't have any of the cheesy ways that you could help find the end. There was no directional microphone to listen to him snoring. You know, there was no thermals to see if you could spot a heat signature. There was literally nothing. There was you and your rifle. Like, I think it even took your map off you, or it took your sensors off you. You just didn't have a thing. And they modified the difficulty where if you hit him, he died. And if he hit you, you died. So it was this super amazing Western-styled shootout between snipers. And it's one of the greatest boss fights ever, for me personally. Just because of that particular instance. And my memory like fuzzes this a little bit, but the day I beat that particular challenge against the end, Aiden was with me. And he remembers that day whenever you mention it, and he remembers it in probably better detail than I do, because I was so adrenaline at the time. But that fight can last hours if you get unlucky, if you get unfortunate where he moves, and it can be really tense. In this version it doesn't generally last that long because you die too quickly, but the time when I did it, it was one of those moments where you run forward. You know, you go towards where you think he's going to be, you pick whichever area you think he's going to be at, and you commit. And if he's not there, you just, you know, you just... Next place. Next place. And I went to that place where I was expecting him to be. I swung my rifle up and he was there. And I shot him and I killed him. And it was just that amazing moment of... Because it was a time-based mode, so I had this super awesome fast time on this incredibly difficult version of an already challenging boss to kill quickly. And it was just one of those moments that, you know, it'll stay with me forever, because it was just a really fun and awesome moment that I got to share with a friend. So it's always better when you're with your buddy. And I've been thinking recently of what boss fight reminds me of that. And you see this bullshit here? Every time I jump in the air, I'm not pressing jump. It's the way that this monorail system's working. For some reason, it's levitating me. It can't quite calculate my position, so it just keeps throwing me up. And you'll notice on the very first video too, I didn't mention it at the time because I was too busy introducing the guide. When I'm driving in the car and I go through that tunnel, the camera starts clipping on the roof of the tunnel, and it starts doing this ridiculous like parakeet head bob thing. And all I was thinking at that time is, this game has been in production for 2 years, maybe longer, and none of the QA people noticed that the very first introductory level of your game has this camera bug. That's unforgivable for me. But this is the end of the level, guys. We're going to get shot by this chopper, everything's going to kick off, and you know, the standard first-person shooter, it's going to get all hyper-ridiculous and superhero-y, but yeah, we've come to expect that. Only 2 levels left. The final one being a very quick and short one. On my guide, at least. On the actual game, it takes forever because there's a lot of standing around and talking, which you can't skip. Which I don't like that stuff, but I appreciate it the first time. So thank you for watching, and you take care now.